All right, we're on the top of the hour. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here with my colleagues, Roman and Mike, and just to let you know, we are doing a draw, so if you have your business cards, please leave them in the front on the table, and we'll collect them for the end of the presentation. And so just a little bit about me before we get started, as I'll be doing a lot of talking today. I'm Minal Patel, you can call me Mina. I'm a Director of Business Development for NIX United, and we're located in St. Petersburg, Florida. My personal experience, I have 10 years of experience with working with healthcare providers for their security and privacy auditing in regards to regulation. And I've been involved in over 100 projects for customer success and to help end clients and end users. So I really have a passion for that. I know that's the recipe for great business is customer success. I'm responsible for client and sales management at NIX, and I thoroughly love listening to our customers and learning their challenges, and I will be trying to always listen more, except for the next 30 to 40 minutes. So the presentation today, we are going to talk about software development as it attains to security and practices that you can take to enhance what your business is doing. We're going to go over three best practices as it would be for the NIX approach and share that. We will be providing the slide deck. There'll be a QR code, and I tested it. You can take that QR code from your mobile devices from the back where you can receive the slide deck and any case studies I refer to today. We will leave some time, plenty of time for Q&A following, and we'd love to hear your comments and any feedback that you would have. So NIX United is a global software development company. We have over 27 years of experience involved in software development for industries that have high security requirements like healthcare and fintech and electronic manufacturing. And we have seen the evolution of the requirements around that. We have an end-to-end development approach. So we know the holistic picture of the cycle for software development, and our developers start working on cybersecurity from the beginning of the development cycle, which is very important. We have over 2,000 professionals that are developers and dedicated to learning the cycles for software, and in that, we have a team of security experts, and the team is responsible for learning and regular cybersecurity training within their various fields. And they also train our testers and developers ongoingly so they can improve their core processes. We have successfully completed over 3,000 projects, and that gives us the expertise to help clients that already have an existing product. And if they're looking for resources to help them, and it could be from small to enterprise type of project, we can bring that expertise to them. Our goal is to help our customers with long-term strategies to help them formulate a process to accommodate for the changes in software development, and there's lots that are happening. So we have an approach to build security as a pillar for every project that we work on. And this is more and more important as things are becoming more challenging, especially with the changes that businesses face and the evolution of threats that have come about. And we see that in the headlines in the past couple of years, how there's always something, right? So we work to help our customers create high quality, secure software. And as I said, this has become challenging for many different reasons. Cybercrime has grown to exponential numbers here, as you can see. And according to Cybersecurity Ventures, in 2020, actually, they predicted that the cost of cybercrime will increase 15% year over year for the next 5 years. So we anticipate that in your building core of software, you have to look at different things. And the cost is not only the deletion and damage of data or restoration of hacked systems or post-attack disruption. It's also programming bugs and unintentional code interactions. And these are ranked among some of the highest reasons for computer software vulnerabilities that hackers are looking to exploit daily. And it's not only about cybercrime, it's also about ensuring that your software has quality to prevent unintentional breaches. So according to research by Intertrust, 85% of COVID-19 tracking apps are leaky in data in some which way because they were produced in a rush and lacking security processes behind that. So establishing security as a pillar is quite important, and it depends on the types of projects that you're going to work on. You may have to cater what you're doing according to the data. So it could be according to the industry requirements, the country limitations, and very specifically, the data that you're working with. And I like to kind of, my analogy is the software is the bank and the data is the money in it. You can have your system around it, you can have your people, you can have all sorts of things, but they're trying to work hard to get that information from you. So you're going to have different levels, and you need to consider that from the beginning. And in this case, to highlight a case that we worked with a client to protect an app that they built for their own healthcare data, and protected health information is one of the highest sought of. It has so many regulations around it to ensure they have a specific checklist that is catered to their data. So for example, we help them understand, how to create an autolog out of that system to ensure that the least access is provided and prevent unintentional access through those systems. So today we're going to go over 3 essential areas that we feel, and in the NIX approach, that are best practices to ensure you have an end product that's highly secure. And to start, looking at maturity models for your software development. And maturity is going to be the key word here. It is the approach to evolving your processes over time from your current mode. And that is going to be an ongoing process where you're continually refining it, and it should never really have an end point. And so going over some of these, these types of maturity models or methodologies are going to provide you the tools to assess your current security practices, and then they're going to allow you to have some kind of idea of a pathway or roadmap to understand what capabilities do you need to take next to increase your security performance. OWASP, SAM, Assurance, maturity model. So OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project, it's a nice acronym, and I have a few here. It is a premier cybersecurity resource for penetration testers, the developers, web application specialists, and security people around the world. And we'll talk a little bit more about this one specifically. Building security and maturity model. The OWASP model is more of a prescriptive model. Building security and maturity model is going to be a descriptive model. So the goal is to measure your software security initiatives against other organizations within the same industry. The goal is simply to be observational in nature, where you observe and report different metrics about your organization. I like to think of the B as a benchmark. So you can understand where other organizations that are doing things that you might be doing, where they're trending. So you can understand what's happening and who's looking at the type of data. The Microsoft Development Lifecycle, that was developed by Microsoft for their own internal processes and their own product. And they later released it to the public for access and for best practices. They have a maturity assessment that allows businesses to go over, and it is authoritative model as well. So it's another type of maturity model that businesses can lean on. So NIX adheres to OWASP SAM consistently. It is an authoritative model, and I'll highlight a case study where we have leveraged this to benefit the customer. In an example of a large technology global provider that had looked to NIX to create a SaaS multi-tenant SaaS platform with microservice architecture. So they were looking to ingest robust data so that they could look at mobile device access and create a console so that they could ensure that they are able to have remote access to the system itself. And they wanted to have a device management. So they looked to us and allowed us to use a specific OAuth-SAM model, and the company was able to analyze their security practices over time and demonstrate the progressive enhancements in security procedures. So they were able to take this 5-point cycle and build security plan with specific iterations over time and measure their security-related practices because they were building a multi-tenant SaaS platform. So the framework itself is used by us for a 360-degree security audit. It has 5 business functions: governance, design, implementation, verification, and operations. And that is, each one will have 3 separate categories that can be scored on a level of maturity for the business. So you can go through iterations over years. It is an ongoing process. And when we do an audit, we know that it's not going to be a race. There's going to be times where you're going to look at things and you're going to focus on different things. So we can implement the parts of this cycle, this framework, that are going to be most important for your requirements for your business needs. So how to apply this tip if you happen to have a product already in place? It's really using that framework and doing a security audit to look at, is your current security processes sufficient or not? Identify any vulnerabilities that might be introduced by new technologies and processes that you may be looking to address in the future. And then identify the urgency around the types of security gaps that you might see in the assessment. So just talked about the maturity model and how that is going to be a methodology from governance to operations in an organization. This will fit into a secure software development lifecycle. The software development lifecycle is from the inception of the product and development to decommissioning of it, and it is cyclic for many organizations. It is ongoing, and really the secure software development lifecycle is a collection of best practices and additional activities that work along with your software development cycle. Typically, security-related activities were done at the testing phase, and in this case, you can see that we are thinking about security in each phase of the development lifecycle. So how does secure software development benefit your company? Because it is involved in every phase and it's done early on, it's going to reduce the number of development issues that you may have and vulnerabilities that you may identify early on. And it also helps change the culture within the organization, because you're thinking of security as a continuous cycle and you're involving your stakeholders early. You're able to have your thoughts around compliance as well, because you will be involving different stakeholders in this process. And it also embeds security cycle for addressing bugs early on throughout the cycle. So how to integrate the software development life cycle. So this is the NIX approach for going through the cycle itself from each phase of the development cycle in terms of security risk assessment during the requirements phase. So we'll look at the standards and the policies for your organization. And if you're working in different countries, we'll review that for you during that time. And then during the design phase, we'll be doing a threat assessment. So a threat assessment will be the creation of a risk app model to help build the future software iterations early on, and you can define what types of scenarios you may come across. And then moving from the planning and stage is to the deployment stage for application security testing and dynamic application security testing, where we will look at the what can happen in the system running on itself before code is actually permanent in the application at that time. And that is the area actually where you will save time and money in the cost of your development lifecycle. Penetration testing, we will conduct reviews consistently in accordance with OWASP and periodic penetration testings to ensure that we can figure out what vulnerabilities you may come across in your software. And then the end phase is a configuration of the system and deployment out. So this phase will be a security assessment. We will implement the firewalls and the systems around your application and the ones that are connected to that as well, to ensure that we're looking at the traffic that's coming around your system and have notifications and able to increase the security on incremental ways as we go through the cycle yet again. So it's a continuous process. So we've talked about security in terms of modeling and then the life cycle in itself with the development. My expertise is around cybersecurity regulations in terms of compliance, and it's really around the data that you're going to be looking at. As you're going through your security models, you are going to address things like this because they're definitely GDPR, HIPAA. You may have to, depending on the type of architecture of your system, you may have to comply with multiple of these. So doing that review is going to be very important. And the consequences, obviously, for regulatory when you're compromising and neglecting compliance can be hefty. Specifically for healthcare, I think one of the largest ones I've seen is $16 million fine to the Office for Civil Rights. And the tiers can range. So it's not only healthcare, there's obviously fines in every industry, but you also have to think about your clients. They may be facing these types of breaches, and they may be looking to you, and will be actually looking to you nowadays, to understand how are you being compliant and putting you through a risk assessment if you are the creator of the software. So they will do their due diligence, and I've talked to legal counsels in many different healthcare industries where this is going to be important, and they'll go through their checklist, and if they see that there's not transparency around your security processes, you don't have a maturity type of model to share with them, they may look to some other type of vendor to replace. So how to ensure your product or your software development and your process is compliant? This is, there's many different regulations out there, and you can't hit everyone, but really do a compliance review and at least be aware and start with understanding the criteria. So it's going to be outside also of your software, but it's going to include the processes and training and having also a personnel that can help with that, that's going to provide ongoing training and understand the compliance that you're looking to review. So if you have a brand new product, you may want to do a complete compliance review, and if you have an existing product, a compliance assessment will help you start that process. So wrapping up, I quickly went over 3 best practices that we recommend to make sure that you have a highly secure end product for your clients. Is the systematic approach, having iterations for maturity of your security over time, and then implementing security from the beginning by including those phases for a secure development lifecycle from the inception of your development. And then also being aware, of course, of the compliance risks that you would be and your clients will be under to comply with. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to leave some moments here for Q&A. We have Roman. He is an expert from our team, from the technical side. Are there any questions or comments or feedback that anyone would like to share? Yes.
In regards to what NIX does, it sounds like that's more of like internally developed programs and stuff like that. And I guess, you know, I work with a lot of specific vendors and we're worried about their code, you know, following their processes and security. So it's like, how would you approach regularly checking if the vendor's code is compliant and, you know, after updates, I guess just regular audits of it, or just checking against, because we asked if, you know, if it's OWASP standard or, you know, that type of questionnaire, but how do you know for sure?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, because, you know, again, it goes back to that transparency of what are they doing on a regular basis. I mean, you can look at many different things and, you know, I'm sure that our experts can answer that more clearly because we do work with large enterprises that are going to press us on the same things. But, you know, looking at their annual reviews, and there are, like, you know, SOC reporting that they may be complying with, that you may want to get that updated every year for yourself. And there's no problem to ask for that. They should be able to provide your annual security review information that they have. So that specifically, I think like going more granular would be a little bit, you know, because it is a security part, but definitely. And if there's any additional information, I'll make sure that our experts can help answer that. Yes?
The developer's lifecycle using these particular flows. It seems a very challenging area in terms of actually having usable input for the developer's experience during the lifecycle of actually executing this flow. Could you comment a little bit more on your experience?
Let me go back to, yeah. So the flows for each phase is, yeah, it is a challenging thing. It's going to be iterative. In the beginning, you may be looking at very low-hanging fruit, but having, as we have an expert team that trains the developers continuously on their skill set and their core processes so that they can get better at testing at each phase. And OWASP, you know, they have a good framework to help guide along, but having a point team that would be able to train your developers and ensure along the process that they're able to be more mature with time. Roman, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, so actually, yeah, with the, so sorry. So actually, once we are talking about the software development lifecycle, the first line, we in parallel, we work on security software development lifecycle. So for example, on the first stage, requirement stage, our business analysts work on the requirements verification with our client, create wireframes, all of the stuff. Our developers start to work on security requirements. So we firstly analyze the domain that we are going to reach. We first analyze the product and create like a set of requirements specifically for security. Then once we start to work on the design, we start creating like threat monitoring tools that will help us to find all the possible threats and create a plan how to minimize their effect on our system. And then we go like forward. So once we start the development, our security specialists do like dynamic testing and penetration testing, and as a result, we have like the list of possible like issues that we are going to cover.
We're trying to combine this with an agile concept that is capable of producing compliance collateral in each phase, so that they would be prepared to go into production quicker, faster, in a semi-automated fashion.
Yeah.
And at this point, all I see is several teams running in parallel, so I have 4 times as many people and less automation. So I'm just curious as to your experience.
Yes, of course. So actually, this is the like this security specialist is the part of the whole team. So actually they work together with business analysts and with the product owners, project manager to collect all of this information. So actually this is like two parallel processes that go at the same time.
Any other questions? Yes.
I missed the percentage. There was a statement about the COVID applications, the percentage of leaks.
Yeah, and the research is published by Intertrust, and they did an evaluation, and 85% of COVID-19 apps have some leak of data in some way or another. And it is, there's a lot of pressure to create something fast. They're also done by government contractors. These publicly seen breaches in other countries where they're trying to trace and data leaks. Unfortunately, it's, from misuse, somebody may find some information about someone else when they're accessing it and unintentional. And it's scary.
With what you're seeing out there with the work that you're doing for companies, is it the lack of experienced coders that are out there, or the company training models that are leading to a lot of this stuff? Like what sets like that company apart, like bringing them in and making sure you've got a good foundation?
Yeah, and I'll give my thoughts, and I'll let Roman answer. Some of these cycles are not going to be incorporating a very security from the beginning, and they're going to be a little bit later in the phase. So they're not thinking holistically. They're basically trying to rush through and give you that. It's nice to have the features and everything, but they are going to create more vulnerabilities towards the end of the product because they're not going along each phase for that. It's definitely a difficult thing to get straight, but yeah, it is challenging, and just having that incorporated in every step, changing the culture is very important, and I think that's another thing where you may be working with a team and they just want to get those features out, they want to get the product out, but changing the culture where security, and security folks here, once you become a security person, you don't think the same, and you can change that culture in your team. So. Any other questions, comments, or fun facts? I've been up since, since 3:30 because I'm on Florida time. Well, we appreciate everyone coming today. There is a draw for a projector, and if you have your business cards, as I said, just please, you can drop them off to Mike there, and we'll do a drawing for that. Oh, and he's